Hello, and thank you for joining us in the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm your host, Steve Lance. Democrats on Capitol Hill today are pushing a bill on gun restrictions, and Republicans are pushing back. A heated debate that's been reignited after 3 deadly mass shootings that took place in 3 different states in just a span of a few weeks. Here's NTD's Melina Wisecup with the latest.
A deadly shooting yesterday left 4 people dead at a hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Authorities say the shooter targeted his doctor due to continuing pain after a recent back surgery.
And who knows how long until the next one.
Democrats on Capitol Hill today saying the time to restrict guns is now.
This is a peculiar American problem. This doesn't happen anywhere else in the developed world, and we have a responsibility to do something about it.
The House Judiciary Committee is in a special session to debate and pass a bill that would impose stricter gun laws, like banning magazines that hold over 10 rounds. But Republicans say it goes too far and does too little to get at the root of the issue.
Who here today thinks that criminals are going to read the Safe Storage Act and some gang member is going to say, I better lock this gun up or else they'll come and take it?
One Republican gives a personal example facing criticism from colleagues.
Here's a gun I carry every single day to protect myself, my family, my wife, my home. So this gun would be banned.
I hope the gun is not loaded.
I'm at my house. I can do whatever I want with my guns.
Democrats aim to make it a federal law to raise the minimum age to 21 to purchase some semi-automatic rifles and shotguns from licensed dealers.
When somebody who's 18 years old and right after their birthday, they go and one of the first things they do is buy an assault weapon, that should be a red flag.
Right now, there are 6 states that have a minimum age of 21 to buy a gun, including the Republican-leaning state of Florida. One sheriff in the state tells me he's confident that the laws in his state have effectively curbed gun violence.
So at the end of the day, on our risk protection order, the government's not taking your firearms unless you don't have anyone else to leave them with.
Florida is also one of 19 states that has some form of red flag laws. Connecticut was the very first state to enact red flag laws and has since gone further on gun restrictions.
Just now in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we know that the shooters in those cases had just gone out to buy firearms on the spur of the moment and then almost immediately use them to perpetrate a mass killing. So that is what is prevented in Connecticut law, this on impulse legal buying of whether it's an assault weapon.
Connecticut now has some of the most restrictive laws in the country. The state requires extensive background checks and bans so-called assault weapons. And this sort of ban is being pursued as a nationwide law by the White House and Democrats on Capitol Hill.
That fringe left and fringe right does not help the argument at all.
Right now, senators from both sides of the aisle are looking at gun proposals that have the potential to gain enough buy-in from both parties to become the law of the land. Senate Leader Schumer has already vowed to hold a vote on gun control when the Senate returns to Capitol Hill. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
The World Economic Forum's annual event just wrapped up in Davos, Switzerland last week. This is an organization that is just another 3-letter abbreviation to most people, but the content coming out of their meetings is starting to raise some eyebrows, and people are taking notice. Our next guest is Clay Clark, host of the Thrive Time podcast out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we're happy to have him on with us. Clay Clark, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. Let me be here. Thank you.
Clay, you're based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Before we start our interview, I just want to say our thoughts and prayers are with the people in Tulsa after the shooting that took 4 people's lives thus far in Tulsa. I just want to make sure that your immediate family and friends are all safe as well.
It is. Thank you for asking that. It is. I'm not saying this prophetically. I'm just saying this because I have read this book called The Great Reset, written by Klaus Schwab. And I would just tell you that you are going to see a ratcheting up of gun violence in the coming months. And I hate to say that. I hate to see that pattern, but that is what's going to happen because the Great Reset narrative it's not possible for it to be fully implemented without wrestling the guns and the Second Amendment rights Americans have away from them. So you're going to see an increase in gun violence here in the coming months.
So, Clay, I mean, on that note, the World Economic Forum just wrapped up last week. This is a place where some of the most wealthy, powerful people in the world come together. Give us a little bit of background on this organization and when it was founded.
Yeah, well, in 1971, the World Economic Forum was founded by Klaus Schwab per the recommendation of Henry Kissinger. Okay, Henry Kissinger also in 1971 encouraged Richard Nixon, our president, to get off the gold standard. So in 1971, America got off the gold standard per the recommendation of Henry Kissinger. And in 1971, the World Economic Forum was founded per the recommendation of Henry Kissinger. So 1971 was the year it all began. And when it began, they began implementing a 50-year plan. And that plan is being fulfilled right now during the year 2022 on me, you, on all of us right now. We are living through the implementation of the Great Reset.
Now, sometimes when we talk about the Great Reset, we hear it in the agenda of the globalist elites. The conspiracy theorist label gets thrown around. So I want to play a clip of a gentleman by the name of Yuval Noah Harari.
The COVID crisis this is the moment when everything went digital, and if this was the moment when everything became monitored, that we agreed to be surveyed all the time, not just in authoritarian regimes, but even in democracies. And maybe most importantly at all, this was the moment when surveillance started going under the skin.
Clay, so let me ask you, is this Mr. Harari just some nobody off the street, or where does he fit into this World Economic Forum?
Well, this is very interesting. You know, Barack Obama, President Barack Obama, he became the president largely per the recommendation of Rick Warren. If you remember, Rick Warren, the famous pastor, he's a member of the World Economic Forum, and he encouraged every evangelical out there to vote for Barack Obama, which got Barack Obama enough votes to become president. Well, then Barack Obama decided to introduce the world to an author, which he praises by the name of Yuval Noah Harari. Yuval Noah Harari has now been celebrated and praised by the likes of TED Talks, New York Times, Stanford, Harvard, MIT. Check this out. Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, Obama, they all praise Yuval Noah Harari. And many people actually now refer to him as the prophet.
Unbelievable. Clay, just switching gears a little bit, you're based in the great state of Oklahoma where you run your show and your businesses. Talk to us about the 2022 midterms. Oklahoma has some big races coming up. What are the issues driving voters in your state?
Well, Oklahomans love the Constitution, and we want to conserve the Constitution, which gives us our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, our Third Amendment. And so in Oklahoma, you're going to see all 77 counties actually voted for President Donald J. Trump. So I believe in Oklahoma right now, you're going to see Oklahomans come out in force. Many Oklahomans who are aware of the issues are choosing to vote for Pastor Jackson Lawmeyer, as opposed to Senator Lankford. Senator James Lankford actually refused to acknowledge election fraud. He's in favor of renaming America's military bases, and he often sides with the organization Black Lives Matter. So many Americans, especially Oklahomans, are not a big fan of the organization Black Lives Matter, despite the fact that they stole the sentiment of that phrase. And they're not Oklahomans are not in favor of senators that deny that election fraud did in fact take place. So Oklahomans are going to be voting for Pastor Jackson Lawmeyer to become the next senator there in Oklahoma.
Clay Clark, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it.
The House GOP is rolling out a new energy and climate change plan. How does it differ from the Biden administration's agenda, and what's its role in the upcoming elections? NTD's Iris Tao has more.
As midterms approach, House Republicans on Thursday laid out a new strategy to try to address gas prices and climate change. The plan contains 6 pillars, including unlock America's resources, beat China and Russia, and American innovation. Republican Representative Garrett Graves says it'll focus on promoting oil and gas while trying to meet rising demands with renewable energy technologies.
It's the beginning of a real policymaking process.
Rich Powell, the CEO of a clean energy policy organization in D.C., tells NTD he thinks the plan marks a new step by the GOP.
That really, for the first time, represents a comprehensive, conservative approach to dealing with reducing emissions to combat climate change, but also preserving energy affordability.
But the strategy is also getting immediate pushback. Some Democrats say fossil fuels must be quickly phased out to tackle climate change. But Dr. H. Sterling Burnett, an expert on environmental policy, notes that U.S. emissions had previously declined under similar policies.
And that's not because we were restricting the use of fossil fuels. It was because technological innovations and the transformation from coal to natural gas for electric power generation reduced emissions.
And Powell says such a plan could potentially help GOP attract voters who care more about gas prices than the climate.
Voters across the spectrum are more and more interested in energy and in climate issues. That's young voters, that's suburban voters. But obviously, even more important to the average voter right now is inflation and energy affordability. They see it every time they go and fill up their gas pumps.
And House Republicans say they plan to introduce new legislation targeting each of the 6 policy areas if the GOP reclaims control of the House next year. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.